Live from our studios, somewhere in cyberspace, it's Beats and Eats, a happy hour for your mind. The virtual lounge is open, so come inside, grab a stool, and your drink of choice. Make mine a Guinness. And now, here are your hosts, Ty Ray and Nick Gelso.
No, that is not the sound of early NXS. That is the sound of NITE, the premier 80s new wave cover band here in the Pacific Northwest. Ty Ray, without Nick Gelso today in the virtual lounge for this episode of Beats and Eats, I'm being somewhat self-indulgent, and I'll tell you why. Recently, I was on social media, and I saw a tweet from this group here in the Northwest called NITE, and they were touring the area, playing the album Rio by Duran Duran, which anybody who listens to Beats and Eats knows that Nick Gelso and I are great fans of Duran Duran. And NITE, going to different clubs in the area, playing every track from Hungry Like the Wolf to Rio to Save a Prayer and other great songs of the album. So I wanted to know more about these guys since such a huge fan of 80s new wave music. For those of you who know Nick and I, we've been talking 80s music since the inception of this show. And, of course, we went on the 80s cruise earlier this year, and we sponsor the 80s Rewind cruise as well coming up in October. So I wanted to find out more about NITE, and the more I dug into their story, the more I dug their story. And NITE started doing the 80s stuff back around 2010, and Michael Henrichsen actually started a campaign to get Billy Idol to play his birthday. This was about 2010. And Michael wouldn't give up. So he started having these concerts, these Billy Idol aid concerts. Now, the money that NITE raised at these concerts went to charities like the Red Cross and Northwest Harvest to feed the hungry. And after 2 years of asking Billy to come and play with them, guess what? Billy did just that. Now, if you go to Google and put in NITE, you will see these amazing stories on CNN, Huffington Post, Good Morning America, to name a few, all about Michael's quest to get Billy Idol to play at his birthday. And sure enough, NITE opened up for Billy Idol, one of the icons, let's face it, of the 1980s new wave era with Rebel Yell and Eyes Without a Face, some of the all-time classics, some of the all-time MTV classics. And Michael got one of his idols, no pun intended, Billy Idol, to play at his birthday party, and NITE got to open up. Talk about a thrill. So hearing that entire story, I dug into NITE a little further. And get this, Michael, the lead singer of NITE, named after Michael Hutchence. Yes, that Michael Hutchence, lead singer of NXS, former lead singer and late lead singer of NXS, Michael Hutchence. And what a great story NITE is. They've got such a strong passion for 80s new wave music. And what I like most about these guys, there are pretenders out there who play parties and who play clubs, and they're just doing the basic of the basic new wave hits, the ones that we've all heard over and over again to the point where pretty much sick of them. The kind of songs you hear on an 80s greatest hits album where it's like, do I really need to hear this song ever again? And the bottom line is you really don't. But these guys go really deep into the catalogs of some of your favorite new wave artists. And so I got a chance to talk to Michael Henrichsen about their love of 80s new wave music, what their future plans are. And we start the conversation, Michael and I, talking about the recent tour by NITE where they feature Duran Duran's Rio album. Touring on the Rio album by Duran Duran, whose idea was that?
So Evan Galt, again, our bass player, is slightly infatuated with Duran Duran, as much of us are. And yeah, I think we've been doing kind of, the same song and dance every show. We try to do themes, Halloween nights, proms, so on and so forth. We bring a female vocalist, a saxophonist, and we just really wanted to do something different. We all love the Rio album. There's a lot of B-sides that we play quite constantly at rehearsal, such as The Chauffeur, Save a Prayer, Hold Back the Rain.
Right.
And we were just wondering, is the audience there to do something like this? And sure enough, There's a lot of Durandys in the Pacific Northwest. So I think it was just us longing to do something different and kind of doing something that had never been done before.
You know what's amazing to me? I just went on the 80s cruise back in February and March, and Huey Lewis was on the boat, Kool and the Gang, Richard Marx, Was Not Was, Starship, and I could Tiffany, and I could go, oh, Naked Eyes and Flock of Seagulls. I could go on and on with the people that were on the boat, along with the original MTV VJs, Alan Hunter and Nina Blackwood, and 2,000 rabid 80s fans. There is a hunger out there for 80s music. Don't you find that to be the case?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm 29 years old, so I was born in '86. My mom named me after the band In Excess, so my first name
Love it.
Michael after Michael Hutchence, and my middle name John after the drummer John Ferris. So it's interesting. We bring quite a diverse crowd. We definitely have the people that lived it and went to it, and luckily we're still seeing some of those acts like Duran Duran and the Go-Go's, et cetera, still touring today. But a lot of those acts don't tour anymore for whatever reason. And it's nice to be able to kind of cover that music. It's so much fun. It brings a certain kind of energy, a certain kind of quality that you just don't see in today's music, and it's a little bit harder to find. And even with people of my age just entering their 30s, it still kind of resonates with my generation. And we're seeing 21-year-old people having their birthday parties at our Nightwave shows. So
That's great. Well, what do you think it was about 80s music in comparison to the music we hear on the radio today? Clearly, there are some terrific artists today, so I don't want to knock today's music from Taylor Swift to Kanye West. I could go on and on with the different types of genres. Certainly rock not represented, but we don't need to go there. What do you think it is about 80s music that resonates?
yeah, it's very distinguishable. I mean, when you hear that sound, you definitely put it to a genre. And even within the genre of 80s music, it's so, widespread, from the Misfits to Metallica to
Sure.
Naked Eyes to Duran Duran to Tiffany to, et cetera, Tears for Fears. There's just so much of the music that I hear today. And again, I'm still a fan of modern music and such, but I don't really listen to, terrestrial radio so much anymore as I listen to satellite radio, just because a lot of the music, the top 40 nowadays, that in my opinion sounds, very, very similar. That kind of EDM dance, here's a high tempo and let's put like a loungy lyric behind it. I feel like artists back in the 80s perhaps had a lot more artistic creative control, and they could push limits and push boundaries, and they were actually playing instruments. uh, and you saw more bands, 5-piece, 6-piece bands. I was actually watching a Dexy's Midnight Runners live video from '85 when they were doing Come On Eileen, and it was like a 10-piece band playing Come On Eileen, which is really cool to see. But I think it's just it's something really original and, like I said, distinguishable. And more than anything, it makes me want to dance and sweat. And if those two things are happening, then you're in for a good time.
You had me hooked, my friend, when I was checking out your videos and I heard the open to Don't Change, which is one of the most underappreciated NXS songs of all time. It is just a classic. Not only is it new wave, it's got that really cool garage band rock sound as well. And to hear you guys playing it, you have a fan for life, my
I
friend.
appreciate that. Yeah, that opening chord on the keyboard is something super infectious about that chord as soon as it comes on. And it's interesting. I think that's NXS's first single that they ever released. And like you said, it's got more of a raw kind of garage rock power chord feel to it, despite having, the layered keys. Whereas, you look at something like New Sensation, Love It to Death.
Right.
It's very layered. It's very produced, which is a fantastic thing. I love, pretty much their whole catalog. But there's something, like you said, very raw, very organic about Don't Change. And it's actually a song I find quite surprising, the amount of people that come up to us and say, wow, I can't believe you played In Excess Don't Change. I never thought of it as such a big single that people would know it. But I think people, really touch well with that song. It's fun, it's dancey, it's rock and roll at its purest.
And for a guy like me, I'm 50, Michael. So I go back to MTV's infant days. We're talking 82, 83. So Don't Change, of course, has a nostalgic feel for me. It goes way back. And I think back to just being on my grandparents' couch, because I couldn't get it at my house. I would have to go to their house to watch MTV. and Don't Change would come on all the time. It was in heavy rotation. So
a great music video too. I recall that they're on that trolley. It's like one long shot.
Yeah, no, it's terrific.
Jumping on and off the trolley. Yeah. Australia's finest. Thank you for Kylie Minogue and In Excess.
Yeah, and also Men at Work.
And Men at Work, oh my God, Cargo. That's like one of my favorite 80s albums.
Yeah, terrific stuff. And there's so many great singles, I think, from the 80s that don't get played for whatever reason. Yes, we hear Duran Duran's Hungry Like the Wolf, but maybe we don't hear Save a Prayer nearly as much, which is a great track, or Union of the Snake, which is another great track, or in the case of A Flock of Seagulls, we hear I Ran all the time.
Yep.
But we never hear Wishing.
No. Yeah, that's a fantastic point. And again, to my point of why I never listen to terrestrial radio anymore. Luckily, with the power of, satellite radio, they have, new wave-esque stations where you can hear Haircut 100 and Naked Eyes and
by the way, they were terrific live.
Oh, fantastic.
They only have the original lead singer. They were on the ship I was just on in March.
Did they do Promises?
Oh my God, twice.
Gosh, there's another 80s song that never gets played. That's just an absolute classic. So yeah, it's a great point that you make. There are these kind of deeper 80s singles.
Deeper cuts.
Yeah, I mean, they're not really deep because I'm sure in the day they were, played a lot, but you just don't hear them nowadays. And I think a lot of it has to do with, in 2016, the way people are receiving their music. People don't listen to the radio so much anymore. They're on YouTube, they're on Spotify. So there's just so many different ways to hear music nowadays that it's so customized and personal.
Yeah, it is.
You don't really hear it in groups of people. You just kind of, go on your own to, make a Spotify playlist.
So being from Seattle, this is a question I always ask people who like hair metal or they like new wave music. I call the 90s where music went to die. I know I'm in the minority, especially in this area. Trust me, I get the talents of Nirvana, Kurt Cobain, sure, Dave Grohl. I mean, my God, they're legends. Soundgarden, and we could go on about the great groups that came out of here. Of course, my favorite group out of here is Heart, but I call the 90s the dark ages because the fun ended right there. So how does Nightwave fit in here where we're talking the home of Nirvana?
That's a good question. We do play Depeche Mode, Enjoy the Silence, which I think is off Violator, which is like 1990. So perhaps it's the fact that we dip a little bit into the 90s that we can get away with it. It's interesting. I went to go see Guns N' Roses last week over at CenturyLink Field, and they had Alice in Chains open up for them, and it was just this whole kind of like grungy 90s revival. I think it is. You hear Nirvana all the time here, and all due respect to grunge bands like them and Alice in Chains and Collective Soul and those kinds of bands. It's just you hear it so often, you want to hear something different. I think everyone has a giant palette. Although I love Metallica, I can still go through my phases.
Oh, sure.
To Katy Perry and Lady Gaga if I, so feel like it. So I feel like, everything in moderation, and perhaps because 80s New Wave isn't as exposed here in the Pacific Northwest via radio and other channels, the fact that it happens, I think there's sort of an originality about it in 2016 where it's not something you can really see every day. So to be able to go and see a live band playing 80s new wave music, as true to live as possible is something kind of unique. And I think that's, what we try to do is not have any backing tracks on our songs and play everything live with 2 or 3 keyboards, playing Safety Dance with Men Without Hats. It's, a challenge to kind of find those synth and chord, the Korg sounds, but we definitely put a lot of time into our craft. And I think that's something that our fans appreciate too, is that we tried to, not cut any corners and essentially just sing over a backing track. The whole thing is live and it gives it a really cool feel.
Well, Michael, if there's ever a KYYX reunion, that's a radio station back in the 80s. Now, was your mom from the Seattle area or your dad?
She is a Bay Area lady. She actually used to work at a radio station called KOME in San Jose, which was an alternative.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I spent some time in the Bay Area back in the day, so I'm very familiar with it. That's very cool.
I think it's where Carson Daly got his start before he got all big on MTV and such.
So anyway, KYYX, Michael, back in the day, it was called KYYX, the wave of the 80s. It lasted like a year and a half. I kid you not. But you could hear Duran Duran. You could hear, in fact, that's the first time I heard Duran Duran, Spandau Ballet. and some of the darker sides like Sushi and the Banshees and other groups from the 80s. Very cool. Depeche Mode, Echo and the Bunnymen.
How do we bring it back? It's a real
How
question.
do we bring it back? Exactly. Well, now the great thing is we kind of can, right? Because we have the internet.
Yep.
We have a way to distribute it via social media. And that's why I think you see things like the 80s cruise I just went on take off. So I got to tell you what, if there is an 80s festival around here, you guys need to be playing it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We, you know, it's interesting because I'm very in with a lot of bookers in the area, and there you see a lot of bands reuniting. I think Animotion for an example that sings Obsession and Room to Move. They just reunited and they're starting to play, you know, like some 1,000-seat venues and such. So I'm definitely like, you know, out with these bookers trying to reach out to some of these mid-level, you know, Berlin-esque acts to try to get them to come play in Seattle and maybe, you know, do a festival. Because like you said, the audience is here. It's just a matter of someone kind of taking it by the reins. But I'll tell you what, man, 80s new wave, there is none better. There is none funner. There is none dancier. And if anyone can do it, I think the two of us can tag team this ultimate 80s concert in Seattle.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. And like I said, we helped with this 80s cruise back in February, March, and we're actually working on the 80s Rewind cruise. We're promoting that as well, which is a cruise that sails from New York City to Bermuda coming up in October. Now, as circumstances have it, I can't go, but I'm still promoting it. And that has Mike Score from A Flock of Seagulls, Nick Van Eat from Cutting Crew, and also Animotion's going to be aboard the ship as well. John Parr from St. Elmo's Fire fame, he's going to be on it. Bobby Kimball of Toto, not new wave, but of course you can't argue with Kimball's success and Toto's success in the 80s.
Do we have any Dale Bozzio, any missing persons?
You know what? It's funny. I have tried to get Dale Bozzio on the show. I haven't had luck. I've gotten many big acts on the show. It is kind of cool. It's just so fun to talk to the people that are the soundtrack of your life.
Totally. And I really hope those artists still realize like how pertinent their music is, even in 2016. I know some of those artists have kind of fallen on more difficult times and sort of following what Dale Bozzio has gone through. And I really hope that they kind of understand that, you know, even with some younger generations, their music is still very, very, you know, pertinent and out there. So to any of you 80s artists listening, please keep putting your originality and your artistic work out there. We love it.
Yeah, I was really bummed, though, Michael. VH1 is now MTV Classic, or VH1 Classic became MTV Classic recently, which means all the 80s videos are now gone, and now they're showing 90s videos.
Yeah, I tell you what, man, thank God for the internet and for YouTube, because at a snap of our fingers, we can just stream that stuff through our phones. Granted, not quite the same, because, you know, I'm used to watching, you know, I grew up on the, you know, music videos too, and coming home and watching Total Request Live with NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys and stuff. And so to think that, you know, NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys are becoming like old bands, it's like, whoa, slow down here. But
and they toured together a couple years ago, I think, a big tour actually.
New Kids on the Block and Backstreet Boys did.
That's right.
NSYNC is yet to reunite. That's my, you know, if I can get Billy Idol to play at my birthday party, perhaps we can get NSYNC to reunite for one show only.
That'd be a huge hit. I'm sure it would.
Not quite 80s.
That's okay. So, hey, Duran Duran also spanned the 90s, and I was talking about this the other day. One of my favorite songs in the catalog is Come Undone, and that's what, 92, 93?
And it's such like a 90s sound. That I guess Notorious is 88, but White Lines I think they did in the 90s. And yeah, you know, they're like, and even some of their newer stuff like Reach Up for the Sunrise, and that they've done
the brand new album Paper Gods. They played at the Pew Album Fair last year.
Still really, really good stuff. And you know, for a band like that to be, you know, 30 years into their career and still touring, you know, as a fully functional band, that's very lucky of someone of my age to be able to experience that.
Yeah, it's very cool. You guys paid tribute to them. I really wanted to go to the show down at the Swiss recently because I'm from Tacoma, so that's kind of my old stomping ground. And and what a great venue to play. I know there's a lot of energy there. It's just a fun place, and I hope you guys come back.
Yeah, you know, we're going to be back in Tacoma, I think not till December, but we're actually playing our first show at Jazz Bones, I think December 10th. So we'll definitely be back in the Tacoma area. We play Seattle every 2 months. We'll be back in Seattle October 22nd. We're having our annual prom show. So if you're feeling like dressing up and getting a hot date, I think October 22nd should be reserved on your calendar for some new wave fun.
Oh, that would be great. And Jazz Bones too, man. They've hosted some big people like English Beat, I think, played there
Really?
2 years ago. Yes, I'm not kidding. Dave Wakeling took that
Oh
stage.
man, mirror in the bathroom, man. Okay,
Oh
see now you
my
got me
God,
hooked.
I confess.
I
Yeah.
can.
And so they,
Well
yeah,
played.
great stuff.
Yeah,
But
it's cool to think that we're playing rooms that other '80s acts. I always say we're very lucky, and we're also very very humble about the success we've had. Although we've had great success, we definitely don't take any of it for granted. So, everyone that's come out to support us, thank you so much for wanting to dance and party and sweat.
well, you're keeping guys like me young. I heard your music and I said, these guys get it because there are other 80s cover bands who are just going through the motions and you know who they are.
Sure.
We don't need to name names here, but I'm sure you come across them because they're your competition and you're looking for bookings and they're trying to book too. And it just pisses me off when you hear, like you said, you guys aren't cutting any corners.
Yeah.
You're trying to be authentic.
Yeah, we're trying to be authentic, and I think what we do, at least what I try to take pride in is I try to pretend we're an original band. Yeah, these aren't our songs, and we're still a cover band, but we try to stay away from the cheese. We're not coming on stage with keyboard ties and Rubik's cubes, and having a three-piece band play "Shout" by Tears for Fears, which has all these crazy backing vocals and numerous layered keys. We're coming out there as a five-piece rock band. We have three keyboards up there. We're all switching instruments to make it sound like the original recording, and I think that's something that really sets us apart with a lot of other local 80s bands. Is we don't cut any corners, and because of that, you get a lot better live feel. You have live drumming, live two guitar rhythm lead. It's quite if I'm dancing and bopping up on stage and something's going right.
Well, I think you guys have hit the right time because if you look at things, it seems like every 30 years people really get into things. If you think about the mid 80s, right? The 50s were very nostalgic with Back to the Future. Even believe it or not, back then a lot of 50s music was getting played. Let's fast forward 30 years. We're in the heart of the 80s. You're talking people in their 40s and 50s. So you're right in the wheelhouse, my friend.
I tell you what, as long as the music's good, I don't think it really matters what age you are. As long as you're there and you're having fun and you're dancing. There's been so many times where I've seen people in our crowds that clearly are maybe a significant other that were like skeptical about going to an 80s show, and then they go and I see them dancing and having the time of their life. I really don't think it matters if you know the music so much as as long as you're open to having fun and having a good time. It's really that's all that matters. And I think with 80s new wave music, it's pretty hard to have a bad time.
Do you guys have any rock in your repertoire at all? Because it was a big era for rock too. I think of groups like Journey and REO Speedwagon and Van Halen. Do you do any of that?
We dip into Van Halen Jump just strictly because of
the
perfect keyboards that are in it.
Yeah.
And, we play it pretty damn true. So big props to our keyboardist Evan Galt for programming that stuff. What other rock? We have dipped into Europe, the Final Countdown, just for a little cheese factor. But
yeah,
there are some fantastic 80s hair bands around here, like Voyager from up in Bellingham, and some of the guys that do it really, really well. So we try not to step on too many toes, but we certainly sprinkle, a little bit of some hard rock. How could you not?
Yeah, that's great. It was a perfect era for that as well. So, like I said, how do we get you national? What's next? What's on the horizon? What are you guys doing?
Oh man, well, we're already booked through March of 2017, so things are going really, really well for us right now. We're gigging in cities like Portland, Vancouver, Bellingham, Seattle.
You go, man. That's great.
No, it is. It's becoming a business to some degree, not quite a huge business where I can quit my job, but we're putting a lot of energy and we're putting a lot of effort into it, and we're like I said, we're trying to make things fresh. Who knows? Perhaps we'll do another full album. We've talked about doing a whole night of In Excess. As long as we're doing things where us as musicians are keeping it fresh and not getting bored of it, then I think the fans will just kind of, keep coming.
Yeah, you guys have to have a good time too.
Yeah, I think that's what's most important. The worst concert I've ever been to. I saw System of a Down. I was a pretty big new metal head back in college over in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and they're kind of a heavier genre of music. The whole time they were standing on stage, not moving whatsoever. And I'm like, these guys must be having the worst time ever. Like, this just has to be a business for them. And I kind of realized, wow, if I ever see myself doing that on stage, I should stop doing what I'm doing.
Right.
But I think, our energy on stage is really infectious, and it really kind of sets us apart from other bands where, we're sweating, we're bopping, we're weaving, we're doing high kicks, split jumps, a little bit of everything. So yeah, we enjoy it first and foremost, and I think that's what's most important.
Well, you certainly brought a tear to my eye when no, I mean it. It really harkened me back to the day. And that's when you've got something, right? When you can draw out emotions in people, and clearly you guys have done that.
Cool. Yeah. Again, we're very, very humble with the entire project and everything that's happened with us with Nightwave. I mean, to be able to, our second show ever, I think we opened up for Billy Idol at the Showbox Soto. So we've been mentioned in social media by Duran Duran promoting one of our shows.
Nice.
So we've been very, very lucky, and we put a lot of time and energy and effort, rehearsing once a week, taking time at home to rehearse songs, the hours and hours of marketing. It's definitely something that takes a lot of time, but when you love what you do, then it's really easy to do. So I think it's just, expanding, we keep reaching further into Washington. We've gotten into Yakima now. We've gotten down to Portland. So we just got to get down to California and Vegas and, keep spreading the good word of New Wave.
So you guys are playing the Nectar, right?
Yes, October 22nd, we'll be back at the Nectar, so just about 2 months away from yesterday. And then like I said, December 10th, we're down in Tacoma. We have a few shows up at the Tulalip Casino coming up. Check Night Wave Party, that's NITE Wave Party. I always say the sexy way to spell night. To check out all of our dates. And again, reach out to us, talk to us. We're really active in social media. We love hearing feedback, songs you want to hear. If you have any suggestions, please.
I do.
What would you like to? Yeah, what would you like to hear us play?
I want to hear some Ice House.
Okay, I can get behind that. We just learned. What did we just learn? We just learned Icicle Works, Whisper to a Scream. So we've been doing.
Oh, terrific track.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of. It's really interesting being in a band because there's, obviously the huge singles like A Dead or Alive, Spin Me Around, that you want to do, but then there's some some deeper tracks. What would be like maybe The Clash, Radio Clash by The Clash.
Right.
It's a little bit deeper, and the crowd maybe not know it as well. So it's like, there's a lot of strategic thinking in the set list. I'll say that.
But that's what makes it fun too, right? When you play these nuggets and people go, "Oh yeah."
Yeah, it's definitely
what a great song.
It's cool. We busted out, I think, the chauffeur not too long ago, not at the Duran Duran show. And to see, granted, maybe a fraction of that crowd really knew the song, but to see those, 20, 30 people that were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe they're playing the chauffeur by Duran Duran." It's cool to get that reaction from people. So we definitely try to not make every show the same.
Well, it also sets you apart from other cover bands, right? It really does, to be able to pull that out of your hat. Whereas other cover bands, it shows your love for the music.
Yeah, I think, like you said, there's so much 80s to cover. How do you cover it all? And of course, you want to please the audience first and foremost. So, like I would say 60% of the set list, 70% of the set list are probably big new wave tracks like Hungry Like the Wolf and such. But then again, there's tracks like Love Plus One by Haircut 100 or ABC Look of Love that don't get played as often. And me as a musician, I just absolutely adore those songs. So, it's nice to kind of do something for yourself and the few 20 or 30 people in the crowd that, like hearing these kind of fun nuggets like an NXS don't change.
I got a challenge for you. I want you guys to play Gold by Spandau Ballet.
Gold.
Oh my God.
You're indestructible. So it's funny. Me and my roommate actually, as a joke, will always tell each other to go karaoke Gold by Spandau Ballet, even though
that's funny.
No one really knows that song except for maybe a select few people.
Well, I had one of the Kemp brothers on the show who wrote the song.
Get out of here.
And they loved the song. I mean, they knew they had something when they first wrote it. And believe it or not, they were hoping it was going to be a James Bond theme. And if you listen to it, you can hear that.
It totally sounds like a James Bond thing now that you mentioned that. That's hilarious. Have you seen their documentary that came out like a year or two ago?
Yeah, a lot of fun. I actually saw their first concert ever in North America. It was played at the Paramount in 1983.
Get out of here. What album were they supporting?
It was True.
Okay, awesome.
It wasn't one of their first. It wasn't clearly their first album, but they were taking America by storm there, and the crowd at the Paramount went nuts. All the girls, oh my God!
It's interesting. A band like that, despite having huge singles, it's almost like kind of a head scratcher because you hear Duran Duran all the time. You always hear Duran Duran on the radio. got a million singles, but you never hear that much Spandau Ballet, which is really unfortunate because they're a really, really original group for their time.
Amazing talent. I love the style, the horns. And it's funny, we were talking about this on the 80s cruise, and Michael, I'll let you go because I can talk about this nonsense forever, is the fact that horns are gone. So when we saw Huey Lewis on the boat, on the cruise, it was like, oh my God, there's a horn section.
Yeah, I just saw Culture Club at Chateau Saint Michel 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, and they came out as like a 10-piece with all these horns, like the beginning of I'll Tumble For You. It's just all these like fantastic kind of dancing horns. I will say, like, my favorite horn song, it's a really deep cut by Wham called Club Tropicana. If you ever get a chance to play it on your pod, play Wham's Club Tropicana. It's like the ultimate horn 80s beach song. So
I will have to listen for that, because even in the fraternity, I had guys that loved Wham and would play, the cassette from end to end, and I never heard that song. It
was off. I don't know what album it was off, but if your fraternity brothers are down with Wham, then I am totally down with your fraternity brothers.
Oh my God, we played everything though, man. We had I drove people crazy with 38 Special. We had people playing Elvis.
Stop playing Hold On Loosely. You've played it like 10 times tonight.
Oh, trust me, I got it. I even played the Gap Band a little bit in the fraternity, and I thought people were gonna people were gonna run me out of there. So this has been a lot of fun, Michael. I'll wrap it up, like I said, because I can take forever here. So where can we find you online?
Yeah, check us out. We're on all social media channels. Facebook, search Nightwave, 2 words, NITE Wave. We're on Instagram at Nightwave, on Twitter at Nightwave. Again, our website, nightwaveparty.com, NITEwaveparty.com. We play fairly frequently, every 2 months in Seattle, Portland, Tacoma, surrounding cities. So there's always time to come see us. And yeah, thank you for, people like yourself for supporting us and saying such kind words. It definitely motivates myself and the rest of my band to keep, pushing forward and learning gold by Spandau Ballet.
Michael, thank you so much, man.
Thank you so much for the time.
And there you have it, my conversation with Michael Henrichsen, lead singer of Nightwave, Seattle. Well, not just Seattle. Let's just make it the Northwest's premier new wave 80s cover band, soon coming to a venue near you. And I hope these guys really have a chance to make it big, because they deserve to be heard. And with that said, let's hear more from Nightwave as we close the virtual lounge. But before we go, let's give out our Twitter handles. I'm at Coog88. Nick is at CLNS_Nick. And, of course, our Beats and Eats Twitter handle is Beat, the letter, and Eats. And we'd love to have some interaction from you. So with that said, let's hear more from Nightwave. When